Hey, how's it going, fellas? In this video, I'd like to give a few general observations I see going wrong in American political and cultural life. These thoughts may be half-baked, but here they are. I plan on reading Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe sometime soon, so I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately, and I would like to share some preliminary thoughts on the matter. So anyway, democracy at the level we have implemented it is not working. We vote too much, and we allow people who shouldn't be voting to do so. And this has led to an absolute dichotomy in American political discourse, and that gap between the two sides seems to only be getting wider, and at this point, I highly doubt that it can ever be bridged. One side is just going to fall, and is just going to crumble, and leave a vacuum for something new to take its place. Which side's going to fall first? Probably the American left, but who knows. Furthermore, many people simply aren't informed well enough on political matters to be in a position where they should be voting. A lack of information on the matters one is voting on is simply irresponsible and really shouldn't be done. Now, this isn't to say that there's anything wrong with not being informed well enough on political discourse. It's not something that everybody should partake in. It's not for everyone, and I'm certainly aware of that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying, I'm not well informed enough on these matters, I'm not going to vote on them because I'm not well informed enough to make a sound decision on the matter. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I don't even think that there's anything wrong with not voting even if you are well informed on the matter. I don't think, I'm not one of those people that thinks that you have a civic duty to vote, and if you don't, that there's something wrong with you. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Moving on, our laws are too flexible. We allow courts and juries to subjectively interpret the law under a modern light, as if the law had been written at the moment of interpretation. And this results in vast extrapolation of current laws into territory that they were never meant to and have no right to expand into. You can take a look at the decision on Roe v. Wade as it pertains to privacy law and probably have some level of understanding of what I'm talking about. Ideally, laws of the land would be set in stone and would not need to be adjusted, edited, added, or removed from. The notion that an intensely involved and highly active legislative authority is necessary is somewhat outrageous to me. Democratically elected officials have no true incentive to guard the resources of the people they represent, because those resources don't belong to the representative. Rather the opposite, the representative has every incentive to seize those resources for himself or herself, because this then increases their own personal resources. Thus, any democratically elected official has every incentive to seize the resources of those whom he represents, usually via taxes. There's the old meme of George Bush Sr. and read my lips, no new taxes. I think that's a sufficient example. By electing officials democratically, the electorate necessarily finds itself putting personal stock in those they elect as a proxy or an avatar for their own interests. Furthermore, the electorate having stock in the elected candidate means that the electorate is more willing to permit the insufficient behavior of the elected official because the electorate is invested in the success of the elected. Moreover, the electorate should necessarily become agitated when their elected official is opposed by others, which further leads to cultural animosity between members of the public because their representative is a proxy for their own well-being. Aside from the President of the United States, people mainly vote for legislative representatives. Nobody is really all that concerned with who their county coroner is, at least not politically speaking. Obviously, there are non-representative issues that people vote on, like school levies, but when it comes to voting for people, it is almost always for legislature, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a sincerely poor method of governance. And I believe that that is demonstrable in modern American politics. Further, on legislative bodies, on political gridlock, people often like the political gridlock because it prevents change. But rather, would it not be better if instead the system was not designed to be so ever-shifting that it had to be gridlocked to stop it from changing? Wouldn't it be better if the system was designed for political predictability and stability instead of eternal change and instability? Human beings are constantly changing in their personal lives. One thing that is very much required for an ever-shifting entity is to be situated on solid ground. Building a house can be a long and extremely dynamic process, and one thing that you desperately need to properly build a house is to build it upon static and solid ground. In the end, the swamp in America is certainly a problem that needs to be dealt with, but simply draining the swamp will not solve anything. Instead, we need to drain the swamp and immediately fill the whole back end with dry, clean soil.